Meeting of July 3rd, 2019. Could we have a roll call, please?
Here.
Commissioner Holtkamp,
Present.
Commissioner Pennell. Here. Commissioner Warner,
Present.
Commissioner Ogle.
Present. And we have two commissioners who are not here today. Do we have a determination of legal notice?
Legal notice has been properly established.
Thank you. And do we have a director's report?
Thank you, Julia Ackerkrog, Chief Planner. And our director is out of the office today, so we do not have a director's report, but I will have an item under matters from staff.
Thank you, Julia. Matters from public. The Planning Commission welcomes participation in commission meetings. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the commission that are not on the posted agenda and items which have not already been considered by the commission. No action will be taken. Would anyone like to speak from the public? Okay, thank you. We'll go on with the consent calendar, of which there's nothing. And we do have two items on the regular calendar. One is the Heartstone Bible Conference Center with the applicant being AT&T Mobility. I realize that most of the people here in the audience are for that item, so I believe it will take some time. That was continued from the May 16th meeting. So if, well, I think we'll go ahead and do item 6B first. I think that item, it's only a rezone, so it shouldn't take too much time. So Julia, can we have item 6B? Thank you.
Yes. Vandy Vandewater here is going to go ahead and present the item
Thank you.
once he gets set up.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Sam Vandy Vandewater, Planner 2, Planning and Building. Today, I am presenting to you a rezone application. The request is a rezone of one parcel from limited commercial to general commercial. Let me get on the right maps. This project is located 2 miles west of Redwood Valley Town Center on the north side of North State Street, right where North State Street comes into 101. Show you that. So there's the intersection of North State and 101, and there's the subject parcel. It's currently zoned limited commercial with a community character combining district. The site characteristics of the property is that there are 3 existing structures which have been mostly used for commercial and light industrial use. And the subject parcel is located near but not on the Maakama fault line. So there was no need for any geotechnical studies. With regards to agency comments, the only agency that had concerns was the Redwood Valley MAC. They had concerns regarding community character, which, as noted, it's under the community character combining district. Thus, formula businesses under the retail sales, food and beverage retail sales, food and beverage preparation, and eating and drinking establishments, those would have to go under additional review if they were to be located on this property. An additional concern was the impacts of new uses. However, the general plan has did an environmental impact report on all the general plan zoning throughout the county and determined that the commercial use here was appropriate, which allows for both commercial or C1 limited commercial as well as C2 general commercial. With regards to key issues, the project was found to be consistent with both the general plan and the zoning district. Minimum parcel sizes will be adhered. And with regards to environmental determination, the project is found exempt under section 15-183, which is just for projects which are consistent with the general plan and will not have any environmental impacts. And one last note is that in the resolution, this project was originally scheduled for June 6th, and there are 2 June 6th dates quoted in the resolution, which should be changed to this July 3rd date. Other than that, staff recommends approval of staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommends to the Board of Supervisors approval of the rezone. Thank you.
Thank you, Vandy. Are there any questions of staff?
Yes, I have one. We had a parcel, and I believe it's the one to the neighbor to the north of this one, that was proposed for a gas station, and I wonder if you could place that parcel for me. It was in very near proximity to this one.
So are you referring to this parcel,
I
maybe?
believe that was the one. Is that correct?
I can speak to this. Yes, that is correct. And what we've determined is that use permit, no action has been taken yet to vest that use permit that was done for the gas station. So, but we did look at that to see whether or not the gas station, any activities were going on there. But there hasn't been anything come forward yet for that gas station. But you're correct, that is the parcel there.
Okay, good. Thank you. I just wanted to place the location.
Allison?
Vandy, I'm curious if you could elaborate any more on the Redwood Valley Max concerns. Was there anything else listed in their comments to help us understand more about the basis for the concerns?
Vandy, planning and building. I received one email that was just concerned about the new uses that would be allowed in the C2 district, as well as, again, the community character. They don't want, formula businesses really coming into that area. When I replied to them with responses from the agent that they were just looking for the additional uses, Redwood Valley Mac said that they didn't really have any concerns after the communication with the agent.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay.
The only other question I had, I think it was, I want to say Caltrans, but it may have not been Caltrans, about egress onto the 101 corridor. Did you have something in that? On that, do you have anything to say?
Vandy, planning and building. There was an administrative permit also applied for on this parcel. And for simplicity's sake, because when you add conditions to rezones, they become contract rezones.
Right.
So Caltrans decided to put those conditions on the administrative permit instead of this rezone.
Oh, okay.
So those egress and ingress signs will be placed there, but not through this project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we'll hear from the applicant or agent. Is someone here for that item today? Please state your name when you come to the podium.
Hi, my name is Angie Dodd, and I'm the agent for the applicant. Do you have any questions of me?
Really? Yeah, I do. Do you know yet what the applicant intends to do here?
So the applicant has applied, as Vandy had said, for an administrative permit for processing cannabis and for a business license for retail. And the purpose of the rezone, so on both neighbors are already zoned C2, and when those neighbors went for the rezone, the previous owner of the parcel in the middle decided he didn't want to go forward with the rezone. He wasn't interested, so the owner now would like to have that rezone.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to address this item? We'll open the public hearing now. Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Is there any discussion from the commissioners?
So it's the projected use is going to be a cannabis resale. Are they actually taking dry product and making liquid product at this site?
Vandy, planning and building. At this time, they are not. None of the administrative permit was approved maybe 2 weeks ago, a week ago. The retail license is still under review by the building division, and no application has been submitted yet at this time for any manufacturing that would be that transition from.
But this change of zoning would allow that.
It would through a use permit, so that project would have to
Would be
come
back.
back to either the
Right.
planning commission or the zoning administrator.
Thank you.
Any other items of discussion? Do we have a motion?
I will make the motion, the recommended motion that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors that they grant the rezone R 2019-004 for the project as proposed by the applicant and based on the facts and findings in our packet.
Do we have a second?
I would second, but I think we need to change some dates in the resolution.
Oh,
Is that
yes,
correct?
that's right.
I-
This was originally scheduled for,
The 6th or something.
yeah, sometime in May, and all the dates in it need to be changed to July 3rd.
Yeah, I think Vandy addressed that
June
earlier
Yes.
in his presentation.
July 3rd.
But I'll make it official in the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Do you need the date?
No, I mean, you'll just change it how, I can't remember what our last meeting was.
Okay, then I guess we'll have a vote.
Yes. Commissioner Winigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Purnell? Yes. Commissioner Warner?
Yes.
Commissioner Holtcamp?
Yes.
And Chair Ogle?
Yes, thank you. Okay, that one has passed. We'll now go back to.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners.
Thank you, Vandy. So we'll now go on to our regular calendar, case 6A. That is, then the applicant is AT&T Mobility. The request is for a use permit to authorize construction and operation of a wireless communication facility. And I think we'll go ahead and have the staff report, please.
Thank you. So Julia Ackerkrog, Chief Planner and the project planner for this particular item. So this item was originally heard at the Planning Commission meeting on May 16th, 2019, where it was continued to this meeting today to allow the applicant the opportunity to consider reducing the overall tower height such that it wouldn't require any sort of setback reduction findings pursuant to the wireless guidelines that are adopted by Mendocino County Board of Supervisors. So the agent for the project, Epic Wireless, has provided to planning staff at the end of May some information about whether shortening the tower would be feasible or not. And as is detailed in the memorandum for the item today, reducing the tower height to 95 feet is really not an option. It would require extensive more tree removal in the area and really wouldn't provide the coverage that is really needed for this particular area. So with that in mind, the applicant has essentially stated that this is the proposal that can be accommodated for this area. So the proposal that was originally proposed in the May 16th, 2019 staff report is what's in front of you today. So with that, staff is still maintaining our previous recommendation of approval, and we do recommend granting the setback reduction, acknowledging that it will actually provide more visual screening to have a taller tower because less trees would be removed as well. So, so with that, my recommendation in the memorandum states for approval, but I have prepared an alternate resolution for denial, which was attached to the memorandum that was distributed to you for today's meeting. I will say there's been substantial public comment received for this item. I believe we're up to 25 or more public comment letters. Many were in support of the tower, noting that it would provide great service for essentially any sort of emergency situations, being able to make those phone calls. But there were also some concerns expressed from members of the public. Some about, one particular was about lighting that may be required on the tower, and also just, you know, the standard concerns that we've typically heard here before about EMFs. Related to any sort of cell phone tower. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and I know that the agent is here as well as the applicant for the project, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I'm wondering how many of these exceptions we have granted so far,
I
if
don't
you have any sense.
I am not certain off of the top of my head. I will say in the towers that we have processed in this last sort of year, this is the only one that I am aware of that is asking for a setback reduction.
Julia, we had asked for coverage maps, and there isn't one in this report, but could we see it on the screen?
Yes, you can. So that's what we have here is the coverage maps here showing this area. And so this one is the 170-foot tower height. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about this. We did display this at the last meeting as
Right.
well too. But really, so this is showing the potential coverage area that this tower, if approved at the taller height, would accommodate.
And would you review for us approximately how many households were going to be included?
I don't want to misstate, so I'd actually want to defer to the applicant on that.
We had also requested a coverage area map in the context of the greater region.
Let me pull that up for you. I do have it. I don't have it right at my fingertips here, but I'll get that up while we continue on with the meeting so we can look at that.
Perfect, thank you.
It will take me a few minutes to find this map too, so I'm not sure if you want to go on to the applicant as well, or the agent, or if
Certainly.
you have any other questions for me.
Maybe we could ask the agent, the households.
Okay, could we have the agent or the applicant come to the podium, please, and state your name?
Hi, good morning. Jared Kearsley here with Epic Wireless on behalf of AT&T. Good morning. Thank you for having us here on July 3rd. To answer the question, this tower is approximately serving 160 homes. 160, give or take. Yeah.
160
Dwellings,
residences?
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions for the agent? No. Okay, we'll probably have you come back again, Jared.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are you on? Still 1 minute, okay.
Just wait, no pressure.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. That's a good point.
For members of the public, we just received a packet this morning with letters from probably a lot of you who are here. So we haven't had a chance to read them, so while Julia's going online, we're previewing them. And Julia's ready. Oh, not yet. Okay, sorry.
Actually, Madam Chair, I'm thinking of another question for the applicant.
Okay. Jared, would you mind coming back up again? Apparently, there's another question for you.
Hi, Jared Kearsley here with Epic Wireless on behalf
Thank
of
you.
AT&T.
I had the question. Many of the comment letters that I'm reading are stating how happy they will be for cell phone service. But I know your purpose is broadband. But will it also create cell phone service for these 160 homes?
Absolutely, yeah. It's actually 3 services this tower is going to provide. Wireless internet, high-speed broadband internet, regular mobile services, texting, talking, web browsing, as well as first responders, FirstNet services. There's going to actually be 1 antenna per sector that's designated for FirstNet services for the first responders.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm glad to have that clarified.
I have another question. And are you already in consultation with other cell phone providers, other companies to, I know they have to go lower than yours, their
Yeah.
dishes, but,
They have not shown any interest thus far
okay,
on this tower.
all right.
Not to us, at least. Yeah.
And this might be a question for you or for staff, but can you refresh us on which of these properties are considered the affected properties for lack of setback?
Yeah, are you looking at a?
I'm looking at
certain
the
map?
parcel
Pull up
maps.
a map.
Yeah. Or plan set,
Let's just go, I can show you here.
Yeah.
It is.
so the top left where it says Andrew Emerson, that property was one of the affected properties that is now owned by Heartstone Bible Camp.
Do you have a pointer there?
Oh, yeah, that's, here, let's go into,
Here, I can.
thank you,
handle
yeah, thank you while I look.
This one, this parcel right here is now owned by Heartstone Bible Camp. Kari Williams' property, this one had, I believe, 495 feet from the tower.
What was that again?
495 feet from the tower. This property, I believe, as well. Wallace Small, David Graham, Alan Grass, McGrew, this other Heartstone Bible property, and Neil Gadsden. And this Heartstone Bible Camp up here as well.
Who's the closest?
Kari Williams,
By how many feet, you said?
495 feet from the
Uh-huh.
tower, which equated to a 95-foot tower, which is insufficient.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my doorstep. I'm sorry, it's not just my property line, it's right to my door.
It's to the dwelling, yep.
And while we're waiting, and we had asked last meeting on this, was there any others, there was a talk about, is there another site? And my recollection was, well, no, there wasn't really any other site. And I guess I just want to ask, how much due diligence is done to find other sites?
Yeah, good question. So before the hearing, while we prepared for this particular site,
Yeah.
we scoured the entire search ring very thoroughly, sent out letters and whatnot, and fell onto Heartstone Bible Camp's property, amenable landlord, good location. So we do a lot of research, whether it's looking at the title report, making sure there's no restrictions on title that would prevent commercial building development, access and utility rights, other real estate rights. There's a lot of things that we look at, dozens of variables that go into choosing a cell site that mainly pertain to either real estate rights or zoning requirements. And then after the May hearing, I did look on the other side of Eel River. That was asked.
Yeah.
Essentially what I found is the high point would be arguably inaccessible. The grade is more than 20%. And if you go a little bit down where it's essentially more flat where the homes are, then we'd be running into the same issue with setbacks. So it'd be not much different results.
How would the coverage be in those lower sites, Jared?
We didn't get that far because it's the other variable to moving the site at this point in the stage. This application was filed in December 2017. Here we are a year and a half later to start over on another project that would essentially have the same issues isn't an option. So we didn't bother to run the predictions for coverage.
Thank you.
So if I do have the map. It's now up here, displayed
Okay.
on the screen that you see. So this was overlaid over our sort of a topographic map, and you can see we've got some of the features showing Eel River Road, where that relates to the property, as well as Eel River itself.
Sorry, could you point out Eel River Road for me, please?
That's right. It is this road here. Eel River Road.
And where the red and white dots are on the line, is that the end of the county road?
You mean this line around here?
No, where the red and white ones,
Oh, down here?
yeah, that's where,
Yeah, this is the Eel River Road. Yeah, that's the county road.
okay. I think I'm
And then
confused.
you-
I thought that was Van Arsdale Road.
Well, you can faintly see Van Arsdale comes in like this. It's a little hard to see because it's covered underneath the polygon here, but that is the Van Arsdale Road that would come in this way.
Okay,
And
and
where's the Potter Valley Town Center?
it's not on there.
Off the map.
Yeah.
Way down there.
Way down there.
There you are.
Okay, and one other question, how about Ridgeway Highway? Do you have that on there anywhere?
Ridgeway Highway. It does not look like we have that mapped on here. Let me see if I can see it in the little gray underneath.
Sorry.
And I don't have it specifically called out on here.
Okay.
Marilyn, does Potter Valley have cell towers, or are you hardwired? Are you cable?
In the valley, yes. On the other side of the mountain, which we're discussing today, no.
So you have hardwire to the Potter Valley underground
We also
cable
have cell phone service
and cell phone service, right?
in the valley itself. This goes up and over the mountain, and there's no service in this area.
Okay.
There's an AT&T service tower in Potter Valley. There's an AT&T tower in Potter Valley,
Okay.
out south of this, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
Where is that cell tower?
Off the map.
It's hard to say. It's going to be probably right around here. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Not too familiar with this map.
Existing or proposed?
Existing.
Existing, okay, thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant or the agent? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. We'll open the public hearing then. I know we do have a number of requests here to speak. We are going to have you on a timer, a maximum of 3 minutes, so please adhere. There's a light there on the podium. When it's yellow, you have a few more minutes, or a few more seconds. And when it turns red, we'd appreciate it if you just keep it under the 3 minutes. So we'll start with the first person I see here is Dave Dick. Could you come to the podium, please? And everyone, when you come to the podium, please announce your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Dave Dick. I'm the director of the Heartstone Bible Camp. I'd like to first thank the Planning Commission Board for your service and also for allowing the opportunity for us to voice our support for AT&T's cell tower being placed on the Heartstone property. I hold in my hand a petition of letters, which it looks like you already have, but just this gives overwhelming support to the project and asks the Planning Commission Board to approve the tower. Can I give this to you guys or submit? As a resident of the neighborhood, I give my personal support for the tower for the primary benefits of safety. Also for the cost savings that it will bring to myself and to all my neighbors on landline phone bills and expensive satellite internet costs. As the director of Heartstone, I give my full support primarily for the safety of my staff and camper guests that come to Heartstone. Not only will this tower provide emergency access to the hundreds of people that visit the area on their way to Lake Pillsbury and swimming at the Eel River, but also to the hundreds of guests that come to Heartstone every year. At the past hearing in May, we were all shocked that because of the opinions of two people, the board was almost swayed to not approve the project. I'm so thankful that you had the wisdom to call for another hearing to allow the truth from the other side to be heard. The impression was given that the community did not support the tower. This is completely untrue. I know that opposition is to be expected when you're asked to approve various permits. Of the 4 people that spoke in opposition at the last hearing, 2 of them didn't even live here. One of the neighbors that does live in the community expressed that the cell tower would lower her property value, when in fact, that is exactly the opposite. It would actually increase her property value. She also claimed that Christians are just money hungry. This accusation is unfounded, being that Heartstone is a California state-sanctioned 501c3 nonprofit organization. All funds that would come in from the lease agreement with AT&T would go to support children and families that participate in this organization instead of going to an individual landowner. The other neighbor that expressed opposition is one of the neighbors that is within the setback. She said that out of the 7 neighbors within the setback, that only 3 are in support. Actually, the number is 5 that have given their full support. The other neighbor has told me that he supports the tower, but that he just didn't want to sign anything. This leaves only 1 person within the setback that does not support. And here's the surprising fact: this neighbor doesn't even live here. I would ask the board to take into greater consideration the people who actually live here and will actually be affected by the tower. Also, the context of the setback has to do with aesthetic visibility. The tower is in the best location in that it is completely hidden by a forest of trees, and none of the 7 residences within the setback can even see the tower. Lastly, I believe that the volume of people represented here today, and along with all the letters that have been given in support, shows the Planning Commission board the support from the community, which you had asked for at the last hearing. I would like to ask permission from one of the board members, if you'd like, to ask the audience by a show of hands at some point today if they're in favor of this tower. Thank you.
Thank you. Darwin Dick?
Good morning. My name is Darwin Dick. I'm the father of some children, David actually, and the grandkids there. I'm in the public utility business. I work for the city of Ukiah. I did receive this from PG&E. I think some of the other people probably did too. This is concerning preparedness in case of another fire, and that's my concern. I want to be able to contact my children or them contact me in case this happens again. And as commissioners, you guys, I know, want safety for all of us in the community. And I believe it hadn't been for the cell towers over in Paradise, Santa Rosa, Redwood Valley, there possibly could have been more loss to life, to damage to facilities and homes. And so my recommendation is that you would approve this as a benefit to the community and to families, and not just mine, but everyone that lives in that corridor of Van Arsdale and Hartstone. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee Boatwright?
Yes, thank you. My name is Lee Boatwright. I live at 21500 Ridgeway Highway, Potter Valley. I'm in the Eel River Canyon along with this tower that we're talking about. I'm directly across the river from Hartstone. I'm 80 feet above the river. My house and my bedroom look straight out at Hartstone. This tower will become an eyesore for me because of the light that's going to be on it flashing all night. That will also be the same light everybody in this canyon will have all night long because the tower does stick up above everything and everybody's within direct sight of it. They're talking about people that live within the perimeters of Hartstone being not being affected very much. In reality, they may not be affected very much, but all of us that live out there in the line of sight will be affected. Everybody, I read all the comments. All the comments deal with cell phone service in the sense that they're okaying a cell phone tower, but what they really want is cell phone service. I want cell phone service. We all want cell phone service. There are other ways to do this. There's a knob on the end of this same ridge that has no trees that could have a little tower on it and service the same people. So I don't understand when the gentleman back here, he's in the tower business. That's a big tower. I guess he wants to build a big tower. The Planning Commission's paperwork that they do has an item where they talk about ambient light, but there's no place that addresses a flashing light 175 foot tall on a ridge. And this is a canyon with a wild and scenic river that runs through it. And are we going to do this to everything in Mendocino County? Ignore those kind of things? Mm-hmm. I certainly hope not, because this tower can be built without that light. That's my main point that I'm making. It's light pollution in the boldest sense, in the fact that it's a totally dark canyon. There's no other lights in it. And everybody that goes in and out of it after dark and lives there, they're going to have to deal with it. Let's get the cell phone service out there. That is definitely needed, and I vote for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Hannah Peterman?
Good morning. My name is Hannah Peterman, and I'm currently on staff, and I live at Heartstone Bible Camp. Today, I'd like to ask you to approve the placement of the cell tower for two primary reasons, one of which is safety. Obviously, accessing emergency services is important to us, and right now it's pretty inconvenient. But not only is it a major safety issue, for myself and many other people on staff, we're currently in school. And it would be amazing if we had internet service to be able to access online classes. This summer, I had to turn down the opportunity to take a full semester of free classes offered to me because I didn't have the ability to stream live videos because of the internet service available. So I would like to further enhance the education of the people who are living there by using this cell tower. Overall, I believe this cell tower will provide community and unity among the people on the hill. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Laura Ware, I believe it's Ware.
Hi, my name is Laura Ware. I was born and raised at 11500 Oak Gap Road out in Potter Valley. I currently live here in Ukiah, but my daughter spends a lot of time out at my parents' on Oak Gap Road. And that isn't one of the areas that's going to have service, but my father also takes my daughter down to the river on a frequent basis, and she's 4.5, and the idea of him being able to access emergency services when he has my daughter down at the river is something that I feel is really critical. There's a lot of people who use that river, and a lot of children, and just being able to access emergency services in an area that's really remote, that doesn't, most people out there using the river don't have access to a telephone. And so being able to make a phone call and get emergency services out there would drastically reduce the amount of time that it would take to get those services. So I feel like having the ability to do that would be really critical for the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Beb Ware?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Beb Ware, and I've lived out there in the Eel River Valley for over 45 years now, and it's an absolutely beautiful place to live, and I love living there. Raised my two daughters there. Now my granddaughter's coming out frequently to visit, and I feel it's very important for us to receive this cell phone service out there. I'm very disappointed looking at this coverage map here, which I have not seen before, that my particular residence up Oak Gap Road apparently is out of the coverage area. So I don't know what can be done to make the coverage area larger. It seems to me the antenna is kind of down in a hole there, and it could easily be up on the mountaintop where the coverage would be much greater. But if this is the only antenna location that's available, I guess we better go ahead with it. So thank you very much for listening to all of us this morning.
Thank you. Terry Grass?
Good morning. My name's Terry Grass, and I am in support of the proposed tower. I've been a resident of Potter Valley over the hill for 26 years, and I have been in the setback zone for about the past 10 years. So during my residency, there's been numerous catastrophic events that have left us without power and no way to communicate with the outside world. During the last fires in 2017, my husband elected to stay to save our home, and it was critical that I was able to communicate with him. And I would have to go to the top of the hill, which is several miles away, in order to get any cell service at all. I work for Ukiah Unified School District as a teacher and have been a teacher for 23, almost 24 years. Well, I'm in my 24th year. And I'm a Class Dojo mentor. And Class Dojo is a communications app, much like Facebook. And it allows us to communicate with families and faculty within the district. And so if we have the cell tower, it would make it where I would be able to communicate freely. Also, our internet service is very slow, it's expensive, and it's unreliable. And it has a strict download limit. So as someone had said, there is no way to live stream videos. And very importantly, AT&T has already completed the most difficult and expensive part of this project. They have installed all the fiber optic cables from Potter Valley to the project. Thank you for hearing me today.
Thank you. Alan Grass?
My name is Alan Grass. I live in the setback zone near the Heartstone Bible Camp, and I am a supporter of the proposed AT&T cell tower. I've lived near Heartstone for 31 years. Every winter during storm events, we lose power, sometimes for more than a week. After floods in the two most recent fires, we had no power, no landline telephone, no cell service, and Van Arsdale Road was closed for an extended period. I was one of only 2 residents who didn't evacuate for the fires. Cell phone service would have been a critical asset. We just received a letter from PG&E. All of the neighbors received the same letter that warns us to expect power outages lasting from up to 48 hours this summer. Reliable cell service would be very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry Floyd?
Morning, folks. My name's Jerry Floyd. I would just like to state that I have been coming here since 1980 when my mom married my stepdad, Charlie Anderson, and I have lived in the county since 1998. I've been out on 18385 Van Arsdale. Throughout those decades, I've seen it personally how much it's changed, sadly. It's a safety issue with me. Here a few years back, I had to contact our resident deputy because somebody had broken into my shed and stolen all my food. We're talking hundreds of dollars worth of beef and bread and butter. They ended up catching the perpetrator, but in all that, Sheriff Dutton found him, if you will, but had to go back to the top of the hill to get backup and call for a tow truck. It's always a safety issue. I've been out there, knock on the door, the front door, and if you've ever been out there, it's way out there and it's dark at night and somebody's asking for directions. I got my shotgun sitting right there. I've had things stolen from my property, this, that, and the other. It's a safety issue for me. The fires, we were evac'd twice now. There's no communication. There's no way to interact with the outside world. We're aware that the power is going to be going down. Everybody knows that. It has to, until they can address the whole power situation and are the power lines causing the fires. I do believe that they're a big part of it. So we already know we're going to have power going down, and we have no cell phone. You have no way to communicate with the outside world. And I know that I've had to go to the top of the hill, which, if you're familiar with the area out there, it's the top of the hill. And that's the only place you get cell phone reception. The AT&T tower that you're referring to is a little bit further down on this map. And it was a godsend, as they say, for cell phone reception out in Potter Valley. I manufacture large animal rescue equipment, rehabilitation equipment. We're a small little business, but as I stated in my letter to the board, I'm probably one of the few legitimate non-farming businesses out in Eel River Canyon. We're proud of it. We're proud supporters of the Peace Officers Association. We're proud supporters of first responders. I'm a proud supporter myself personally and going to every training, this, that, and the other that I can go to. But at the same time, I've got one of these fancy cell phones, and it doesn't do anything out there but sit in my car. And so cell phone reception, I feel personally, would be a benefit to the community, not just safety, but mainly safety. And landline, well, if you can't talk to someone back in the day, you called them back. So anyway, I'm for the cell phone tower. So is my mother, so is my wife, so is my daughter. And I appreciate your time. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Juan?
Hi, my name is Wana Wan, and my husband and I built our house about 36 years ago, right on the Eel River, and we're adjacent to Hartstone, which when we first lived there was called Houndtown. So I remember many times when we lose electricity, we lose not only electricity and our landlines, we lose water, and we're threatened by floods. And I remember going up, this was before the droughts, I remember having to go up through the water that was going over the road right there, right where Houndtown, or right where Hartstone and my driveway come together, having to go up the hill through the water that goes right past my house on Van Arsdale. That's where the water goes over first. And having to go through that in order to get to the top of the hill to call my family to tell them that mom and dad are okay. So it's a safety issue, but it's also we may be remote. My family still owns the home, but after retirement, my husband and I moved to Ukiah just because we felt physically we couldn't maintain our property. But it's not only a safety issue, but we're so remote, and also not to have the cell phone service that they even have in Afghanistan. You know, I feel like we're due for it, and we also need it. Thanks.
Thank you. Rick Shaw?
Hi, my name is Richard Shaw, and I live at 17870 Van Arsdale Road. I've lived there for about 7-8 years now, and I'm in favor of the tower. It's just the safety reasons behind it is, I mean, when we had the fire, we had no way of contacting anybody outside, and I think the tower would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Dick Laurie?
I'm Dick Lowry. I've owned my home at 17870 for about 24 years. I'm also in favor of the tower. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other papers here that have anyone else to speak. Is there anyone else from the audience who wishes to speak? Please come to the podium, state your name.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. This is Nick Taggis with Epic Wireless on behalf of AT&T. I'm the long-range planner on behalf of AT&T. Just a handful of things I wanted to quickly mention from some of the comments I heard. So one of the first comments we heard was the concern about lighting on the tower and the potential for light pollution. The FAA has not required this tower to have lighting. So when these plans are submitted at the building permit department, there will not be any mention, any call out, or anything showing on the plans of any lighting. So when the zoning drawings were created, there was a small image on the top of the tower that shows a light image. However, there was no call out on the plans. So when it is clarified at building permit, there will be no call out, there will be no lighting on top of the tower. Again, those those are dictated from the FAA. So if it's not called out, we're not putting it on there. Secondly, the main concern today has been the need for cellular service here. And we're extremely excited about the opportunity to provide these services. But keep in mind that the main purpose of this tower being put here was for high-speed internet. So the concerns of can the tower be somewhere else or be a certain height or shorter, again, that's all dictated from internet. The benefit of this tower, though, will be the extraordinarily amount of coverage. And there was also a concern of, well, potentially some areas are not going to be covered, and it's a shame. I would just like to reiterate that these are the most conservative coverage maps that AT&T puts together. A lot of that has to do with marketing concerns, over-promising, under-delivering. Recently, at our last hearing in May, we had a project in the Comshi area, and the concern for some of the residents in Comshi was that they weren't going to get service. And we personally, as a company, we connected that group with AT&T, and it's public record now. They redid their maps using more than their conservative estimates, and those estimates are showing that that area is going to be covered with that tower. So I can't promise you that that is correct. Yes.
Downtown Comshi is going to get covered?
Yes. Yes.
Great.
So when we're looking at this map here, this is the most conservative map that you're going to see with this area. So with that, again, we're happy to see the amount of folks out here today. Due to the delay of getting from the May hearing to now, we can't promise that this site will be built and on air this year. Obviously, that's going to be dictated how long it takes in the building department to review the plans. But if this is approved today, our small little family company will work as hard as we can to get these plans converted into building sets and submitted to building department as quick as possible, because again, this is a federal funded high-speed internet project, and we want to try and get this up and running before the winter rain starts.
Nick, I had one other question. One of the comments was about the fiber optics. Fiber optics have been installed. Could you explain that?
Yeah. So when these towers are proposed in multiple areas, one of the first steps is a separate group called AT&T Landline. And I was confused at first when I started working on behalf of them. They're two different companies. They're under the same umbrella. AT&T Landline will find the nearest available point of fiber, and it could be up to 3 miles away. Then they take it from there, and they travel it all the way, either through overhead lines, or in some places they trench it underground in the public right-of-way, to the edge of the private property of either the private property or of the main public right-of-way at the entrance of the private roadway. And so from there, they cap it right there. And they get all of their permits through a separate entity, separate departments. We don't have visibility to that. But once we obtain our entitlements here, and then we also obtain our building permit, then AT&T Mobility, which is the people we represent, they're civil vendors who build the tower. They will take the fiber and plug it in right there from that public right-of-way and bring it to the cellular site. So towers need a telephone line connected to that tower in order to give out that signal. And if there is no telephone line within miles, then we have to add a microwave dish to that tower to go get that signal from some other tower. And that's how the technology works. So in this case, about 3 miles away, there was fiber close enough to bring a fiber line to the public right-of-way right around where the tower is going to be built, to then have what we call a meet-me point, where we meet it there and then bring it to the tower.
So was this fiber optics installation for this tower specifically, or just for AT&T to install it for more?
No, it was specifically just for this project.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. You are confident that there won't be a further time when the FAA will require a light on this tower? Would they have done it by now?
So how it works is a federal compliance group within AT&T has to provide our drawings and scope of work to the FAA, and they analyze flight patterns, and they analyze risks to flight patterns, and they will determine that. And once they make a determination, that's a final determination.
But that has not happened yet.
No, that has happened. That's why we're not proposing a light on this tower. We have received the FAA's final determination that no lighting is required.
Okay. Great. Thank
Thanks.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
If I may, through the chair, I can just add that there is condition of approval number 6 on the resolution that's contained at the back of the packet. And on that condition, it speaks about exterior lighting fixtures, and specifically there's the last sentence says, no aircraft warning lighting shall be installed unless required by agencies with jurisdiction over such a determination. And you could always request that the applicant, prior to getting issuance of the building permit, furnish a copy of this authorization from the FAA, essentially stating that no lighting would be included, for the record to be in that file. So, just add.
Thank you.
And again, to follow up on that, there won't be any call-outs or any lighting shown on the top of the tower for FAA requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else wish to speak? Please come forward and state your name.
Hello, my name is Joan Toriano, and I am 800 feet from the tower. And I wish to state right up front that I love all my neighbors. I don't have a problem with any of you. I think there was a misunderstanding about money-hungry Christians. All I said was I don't understand why they put these on Bible camps all the time. Maybe it's the money. I mean, you know, who doesn't need money? So anyway, that was, I don't want that misunderstanding out there. So there's been a lot of talk about cell service, and I agree with most of what everybody has said here, that we need cell service. But during the fires, there was no cell service, and during power outages, my landline is the only thing that works out where I am. I suppose if we had maybe cell service, maybe it would work. I don't know, but it didn't work during the fires. Everybody was down during the fires. So I don't think that's gonna fly as far as fires go, you know. Many of us have internet already. I have high-speed internet. It's true, it's expensive, and there's limited data. So I think really the thing is cell service. And my neighbor, Oli Wick, told me that he has high-speed internet where he can stream Netflix. I don't know how he does that, but he has it, and he's near the dam. So we do not have nothing out there. We have service of some sorts. They talked about the fiber, and I was confused about that. And this federal program that's going through, a lot of it has to do with the 5G that's coming up. Nobody's talked about that. And I don't know if my neighbors would be that interested in having 5G around them if they knew anything about it. And the fact that lots of scientists have come out against it until there's further study, because there's not a lot of study on 5G. Fiber goes with 5G. It doesn't so much, I guess, go with the other ones, but they can tell us more about that, I guess. And although we're not allowed to talk about the health issues, I just want to say that firefighters have had an exemption due to health reasons. They have not had cell towers on their firehouses for the last 15 years. They don't want them on their firehouses. They actually live in their firehouses. And I actually live for 23 years where I'm living, and that cell tower will be 800 feet from my face, like, because I'm at that level. So I'm going to be right there. A couple other little things. Quoting from AT&T, within 3 to 5 years, fixed 5G wireless will be unequivocally a landline broadband replacement product, said AT&T Chairman and CEO Randall Stevenson on the company's earnings call day. So that's coming up. That was in 2017. The wireless industry, this is CBS News, the wireless industry is in a race to roll out 5G service. The network is supposed to be up to 100 times faster than current data speeds, but it requires cell phone tower equipment to be closer to users than before.
I think you're just about out of time, so if you could tie it up, that would be good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I saw someone else with a raised hand there.
Hello, my name is David Dalton, and I also live next to Hartstone Bible Camp. and I've lived there for 45 plus years. My father and mother, who also live there in another house, are also next to Hartstone. And my dad's going to be 82 years old in August. And the reason I bring that up is because there are different medical devices that he has for breathing and for heart, which require cellular hookup to just send this data out to monitor his condition. And that's something I haven't heard anybody address that would be a benefit of this cell tower. My parents aren't the only retired elderly people in the area, and as technology advances, there's a lot of devices that could be used in that area that everybody else in the Ukiah area and surrounding areas have privilege to use that we do not. And I think just that alone is something that should be considered. The other thing I wanted to bring up is the fact that as we do business in areas of Ukiah or Santa Rosa and people get our cell phone numbers, the amount of calls that I miss and the texts that I miss, I only receive when I drive into Ukiah, and then my phone lights up with all these messages that I wish I would have been able to receive in an orderly fashion. And they go on from everything from business contacts to reports that your car is done at the service center, or the repair order needs this or whatever. And those are things, and even though I tell them adamantly, you know, I only have cell service when I'm in Ukiah or in Santa Rosa, leave a message on my home phone, and a couple days will go by and I'll call them, oh, we left a message on your cell phone. And you know, that's just another inconvenience that would be eliminated by, you know, cell tower service in our area over the hill. The other thing I just want to mention is, you know, we do have the river there, and I don't know the numbers, but the river is packed during the summer months. And not only that, but as the gentleman mentioned, even though sometimes you may not have a good enough signal to have a actual cell phone communication, if that tower was there, there are so many areas where people travel in the national forest that would be able to get a text out, I believe, even though they couldn't send out an actual phone call or receive, you know, Facebook or any of that. They would be able to send out a text. And if they drove off the road, broke down, ran out of gas, or, as people have mentioned, an incident at the river with a small child or anybody being sick or hurt down there, just to have cell service to immediately notify service personnel and emergency services would be much appreciated. And I'm, and my parents and our whole family is for the cell service proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to address this item?
Hi, my name's Andrew Emerson. I used to live at 17820 Van Arsdale with my wife and 2 kids. You know, I hear a lot of things about convenience and safety, and I completely agree. You know, I'd like to have cell service too, but this is not the ideal location for a cell tower. And there's no point for Mendocino County to have guidelines and choose not to uphold them. There are several neighbors opposed to the reduced setback and general location of the tower. The guidelines say that all dwellings must agree to the setbacks. Well, most of the neighbors right next to the cell tower did not. I sold my house to get away from the cell tower. I lived there for 11 years. I did not have any faith that the county would uphold their own guidelines and protect citizens from corporate power, both the applicant and AT&T. The people who are not, who are opposed to the setbacks are Kari Williams, the Emersons who used to live there, the Smalls, McGrew, Graham who decided not to sign anything, and you have the letters in your file. So it's not a matter of wanting cell service or safety or how convenient it would be. It's just the people are being displaced from this project. It is appalling that Mendocino County is tempted to side with corporate power, AT&T, and fellow applicants with money-making endeavors over tax-paying residents raising families hoping to live Mendocino's hometown dream. How much money are you getting from AT&T? My family of 5 lost our home over this project. We lived 11 years at the 17820 Van Arsdale residence. We chose to sell our house due to the conflict that arose around this tower project and lack of faith that Mendocino County would actually uphold their own guidelines. It's easy to want to sell tower when it's not next to your house and you don't have to look at it or listen to the generator, the diesel generator that will be running, and there are sound pollution requirements in their application. I wonder how that's going to go with a diesel generator going when the power goes out. It's going to be pretty loud at 490 feet. Were there environmental impact reports done? Did anyone call for owls? There's an abundance of wildlife in the immediate area. Mendocino County is supposed to uphold the California Environmental Quality Act, the FCC guidelines, as well as all of California's and Mendocino County's laws and regulations. We question whether we would ever buy property in this county again because you choose money over families. Shame on you for even considering this project. Next time you consider a cell tower 490 feet from a home, make sure it's your own home. A couple quick points, and I have 8 seconds. There's the location 17840 on the piece of paper. That is a residence. That is not an applicant-owned parcel. I'd like to mention the road conditions in Potter Valley are in shambles, and the heavy equipment hauled in by trucks to build this tower will surely greaten that damage. And I'd like to know how AT&T could be pulling fiber optic cable on a project that hasn't been approved. It makes you seem like you're going to lose from the beginning. And I'd like to mention that the guidelines for cell tower setbacks for schools are at 1,500 feet, and the applicant owns and operates a youth facility in which hundreds of children attend their business camp. The county is obligated to protect these unknowing children and their families. And I think if we all brought our children in here and just packed the courtroom, maybe it'll just seem safer to approve whatever. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public who wishes to address this item?
Hi, my name is Kari Williams, and I live at 17830 Van Arsdale. So I've heard many things here at this hearing, and if you were here, but I don't think most of the people that are here speaking were at the last hearing, AT&T said that if there was a major fire, that this tower would also burn down. Or that any tower would burn down. They're not safe from fires, and that they wouldn't necessarily work through a fire. This has caused anything but peace and harmony in our neighborhood. We used to have Christmas parties. We used to all get along. Everything was great. Now we have a neighbor with a father, Andy, that just spoke, who's dying in all this process. They've had to move out. Dave Dick has approached my partner a couple days ago and said this has already passed, and I'm wondering how is this just a formality, or don't you guys have to approve this? It looks to me like most of the people here and the people that wrote the letters are from the church and not necessarily residents that are going to be living that close to a tower. I was the one that called Dave Dix and his family when there was the fire out here, and I did it. I actually got through to them on a home phone. That's how they were found. That's how they found out and were aware of the fire that was starting in Redwood Valley that night. I don't know how the money is coming before the health of the children that will be up at this camp, that are up at this camp. As I stated before, children roam through the camp. They run all through the camp, and so the chance of them not coming up around the cell tower and playing around the cell tower is probably very likely. I just want to say that, I took all these pictures, the eagles, the owls, all these animals that also live out there and have already been pushed out of their natural environment from the fires in other places. I moved there because it's actually away from the city, and I really don't understand why we're trying to bring up the city up to one of the last remaining places that's still not infiltrated with cell towers and the lighting and everything. It took my whole life to buy this house. I am having to work. I'm teaching also. I also work with Class Dojo, and I do it from the school. You can do a lot of your work from town. I used, my house as a refugee. It's a place where we can still get away from the city. For the animals that live here, for the children that play here, for the visitors that come to the camp, for the Christians that come to the church, and for my family who lives in my house and my animals, I beg you to not pass this. It's also my understanding that there is a 800 protection from people's residence, and my house is 495 feet. I ask for you to follow that policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public that would like to address us?
Hi. Excuse me. Hi. My name's Christina Slates, and I'm a Potter Valley resident, and I was just going to speak as a wife and a mom. My husband's a highway patrol officer, and I know he's been on calls out there where he hasn't had service and his radio hasn't worked. And just as a wife of a law enforcement officer, to not be able to call backup, we're in a community where it's not two officers in a car and a whole posse of people to back them up. It's one officer, and it's like, just makes me shake when you think of what could happen, knowing there's no way for our law enforcement officers to get the response they need from backup. Someone mentioned a sheriff officer having to go up to the hill to call for backup, and I know that that's been the case in other circumstances. As a mom, my son's on the volunteer fire department, and he was driving home from Heartstone Camp from volunteering up there, and he passed a drunk driver that had crashed on the road. And there's no cell phone service, so he got out, to try and see if the guy needed help. Well, the person who was high and drunk at that point started trying to attack him, to the point my son ran, jumped in his truck, was smart enough to lock the doors. The guy was trying to, because he had his window still down from first asking if the guy was okay before he actually got out. The guy was trying to crawl in his window, and he was able to get the window rolled up and drive away fast enough to go call 911. But there was no way for him to get help until he drove to safety. And that's from a firefighter paramedic perspective. And then the mom perspective, I always take my kids to the river to go swimming. 2 times we've had emergencies up there. There were complete accidents that ended with me driving to Willits to go to the emergency room with my kids. But if I would have needed to call 911, I couldn't have. There would be no way for me to call 911. I think the fires are obviously a real issue for where we live. There's dry timber everywhere. And not being able to be notified, like if we're at the camp or at the river, it's crazy to me to live in it, in the just the time we live in, but not be able to warn someone of a fire that is going to burn down their house. I just watched most of my family lose their houses in Paradise, and it would have ended differently if they could not have got their cell phone calls that they got, because their landlines didn't work. And then just to wrap it up real quick, I feel like I'm very into the health and well-being of my children. And if you choose to live without a cell phone, that's fine, but you can't put the risk of everyone else in a community just so you are not exposed to cell phones, because that's just the age we live in. Cell phone towers are a fact of life, a part of life, and there probably are some places in the world to live where they wouldn't be, but not where there's so many kids in a whole camp that needs protection. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public who wishes to address this item? Hi, Nick.
Nick again with Epic Wireless. Just a few points of clarification for some of the comments again we heard. So address the first one about fiber. So again, that's a whole separate group, and they go at risk. They paid their own fees, their own permitting, and their own labor to bring that fiber in the event that it gets approved. If it's denied, they did that at their own risk. That wasn't any sort of indication that they believed that this was going to be approved. this is a nationwide sort of, because of how quickly it takes to get these things built once they're approved. They do a lot of this groundwork ahead of time at risk. Secondly, the comments and concerns about environmental habitat disturbance. So there was extensive biological and archaeological studies done for this project as part of the requirements of the zoning ordinance of York County. On top of that, we're talking about a 17.5 acre parcel where AT&T is taking up a roughly 40 by 40 foot compound. Lastly, health and safety as it's related to FCC emissions. We all know the laws and regulations about approving structures. However, I want to make it personally clear that this tower not only beats the minimum standards of FCC of the United States, but also all international standards as well. As well as the taller the tower gets, the further away you are from EME emissions. Lastly, there was comments about 5G versus 4G and fiber. Fiber is needed for every type of cellular tower, no matter what technology it is. 5G technology right now and in the long-term future is only going to be dedicated towards densely populated urban areas, downtowns. Why is that? 5G service as a technology requires a 5 millimeter light band. So all technology is transferred through light. Your microwave, our telephones that are wireless, our remote controls on our cable boxes, the rays that we get from the sun, everything is light. That's how everything works, is just through light. A 5G technology is a 5 millimeter length light, which means it doesn't travel very far and can't communicate very clearly unless it's very close, hence dense urban areas. 4G technology has a longer light band, which means it can travel further, it can navigate through certain obstructions, and that's why these rural areas in the United States are going to be on a 4G technology for an unknown period of time. And that's how 4G works. 5G is, again, going to be in downtown, highly densely populated areas. Why? Well, so we can have coast-to-coast doctors performing surgeries. If you're in New York and your doctor's in California, he can perform your surgery with 5G technology, as well as driverless cars, all those amenities that urban centers are looking to have. What we're talking about is just standard, regular LTE service coverage, but most importantly, reliable, fast, high-speed internet at a mandated cost that is at or below current costs in those communities. So we're talking about competition for high-speed internet, reliability, as well as cost effectiveness. And the most important, in my opinion now, is this FirstNet, having a dedicated network for your first responders. They'll be able to speak with the residents if there's an emergency, and if the network starts to become burdened because of the amount of usage during a natural event of a disaster of some sort, their coverage will get increased so they can communicate with each other. So I hope that cleared up some of the concerns of some of the residents when you're talking about making a decision of this impact and this nature.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public who wishes to address this item?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Hal Pauly, and I volunteer on the Board of Directors of the Heartstone Bible Camp. I just wanted to make a couple quick points. If I could ask you, because the setback issue is a matter of code, is a matter of statute, and it doesn't, I don't mean to insult you. It doesn't seem to appear that you guys have looked at this recently, and I have a copy over here if you'd like of it. You probably have a copy. I'd be happy to just give this to you.
We have it. We have it right here.
I'm sure you do. Letter M says, it discusses the setbacks. It says tower setbacks in excess of setbacks required by the zoning code may be reduced under any one of the following circumstances. And I won't go on to read the rest of it, but it'll be plain to you that item number 3 and number 4 have been met. So you have, it requires one issue be met in order to qualify for a reduction in the setback. In fact, we have 2 here, and Julia could speak to those more knowledgeably than I could, of course. In addition, I'd just like to point out that this cell phone tower you and I, we drive by cell phone towers on a daily basis, and they're big and they're ugly, and no one's really excited about that. But we've become very accustomed to our cell phone use, as a lot of people talked about today, and having internet. The fact of the matter is, this cell phone tower is very unique in that it's in the middle of the forest. So no one nearby is going to be able to see it because there's hundreds of yards of dense forest between any other residence and it. So the only impact that these neighbors are going to experience of this cell phone tower being installed is that they're going to have bars on their phone. They won't actually be able to see the tower. Now, folks that are further away, like on the other side of the canyon, they're going to be able to see it, but as her report states, the trees that surround the tower location in the forest are 125 to 165 feet tall. So you're only going to see the little tip of the tower. The towers that you and I drive by on a daily basis, going to the grocery store, going to work, we see the whole tower. In this case, depending on where you are, the further away you are, you may, and depending on which, north, south, east, west, where you are, you may see, best case, you're only going to see 10 feet of the tower, and that's from way far away. Some cases, you'll see a few more feet. But this isn't like the regular towers that we see around the Ukiah Valley. This is in the middle of the forest. It's an optimum location, visually speaking, for a tower. As you know, the state of California and the county have spent a lot of money and time investing in emergency alert systems when there are emergencies that a lot of people have talked about today. People that aren't right next to a landline in this area can't get those emergency alerts. This is the 21st century, and even if someone just feels like, gosh, I have a personal preference that there shouldn't be a telephone tower, we have an obligation to, in this day and age, to provide safety. So thank you so much for your time and your consideration. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Hal. Anyone else from the public wish to address this item?
Good morning. I'm Eric Peterman. I'm also a volunteer board member at Hearthstone. I'd just like to provide just a couple little thoughts to you. I won't take the whole time. But an issue was brought up regarding fire safety with the towers, and they'll all burn. Well, it is true that if they're surrounded by a fuel load, they will burn right next to the tower. But I've been brought on board because of my experience and expertise in environmentally sensitive managing forestry. And so I'm going to be carefully thinning the forest in the area. The fire in 2017 came on Hearthstone property. And one of the issues that, in fact, I've been brought on board to address is the fact that the firemen and the CAL FIRE and all the other agencies had no communication in that area. And it was very frustrating to them. So this will mitigate that issue for the entire area. And the tower is not going to necessarily be exposed to a fire danger in the future because we're going to manage the undergrowth and so forth. And I'm working with the county on that issue. The other is that the installation of this tower is congruent with and meets the intent, the letter, and the spirit of the Congress and the government in the Rural Broadband Act. In fact, the grant monies for this come from that act. Also, the Telecom Act of 1996 stipulates that any decision to deny an application to place, construct, or modify a wireless facility must be in writing, must be supported by substantial evidence contained in a written record. In other words, a denial must be for very good evidenced and substantial and substantiated reasons. In other words, it can't just be arbitrary or we feel like it. And as Hal brought out, the county regulations actually, two of the points have been satisfied, point 3 and point 4, as far as the reduction of setback. So my daughter Hannah spoke early on, Hannah Peterman. She works at the camp, and we're very concerned that her and her younger sister, also working there, would have access in the future to the safety of a cell phone and also access to data. So I want to thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience wish to address this item? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Did the commissioners need a break, or do you want to continue on?
We could continue.
Continue on. Okay, wonderful. We'll continue on then. Is there any discussion from commission members? Any comments, any questions? I have a couple for Julia. I'd like to know, Julia, could you read number 3 and 4 of the wireless guidelines that are being addressed? Oh,
I
you're-
actually have them
you're ahead
up
of
on the
me.
screen
Thank
there
you.
for you to take a look at. And so number 3 really speaks to the findings. If you read the preceding section, part M there, it says can be reduced under any one of the following circumstances. So it only needs to meet one of these criteria. And so the one that the applicant here is really seeking, they did try to get all property owners that are affected to agree. As you've heard here today, they were not all property owners were willing to agree. So the third is that overall the reduced setback enables greater mitigation of adverse visual or other environmental impacts that than would otherwise be possible. Sorry, it's a little bit of a difficult sentence. And so with that, staff is, as I've detailed in my report, we do find that the tower as proposed would meet this criteria, primarily because any shorter of a tower in this location would require substantial more vegetation removal in order to get the coverage that's really necessary for this. And then for item 4 below, you will see in the conditions of approval that there is a requirement to get a letter from a licensed engineer after the tower is completed that verifies the overall tower height.
Thank you. Yes.
May I address that?
Yes.
I don't personally feel number 3 and 4 mitigate the requirement of a 500% overall of the height and the setback. By saying, certainly number 4 is just measuring the height of the tower. That does nothing for protecting the property owners who don't agree, who clearly stated today they're not supportive of this going forward with the tall tower. Now, so when you say overall the reduced setback enables greater mitigation of adverse, because you're talking about not mitigating how it affects the property owner, you're mitigating, we're not cutting any more trees down or shrubs, but that has no bearing on the residents who are being impacted by a cell tower that close to their property. So from a planning standpoint and where I sit, that doesn't mitigate. That analysis doesn't work for me in my understanding of this requirement. And I'd like to hear what other commissioners say.
We heard earlier from a staff member at Hearthstone, and I apologize, I forget your name. Dick, thank you. Dick had mentioned that 5 out of the 7 affected neighbors on the 7 affected properties were in support. I'm only able to find one of those letters in our packet. Do we have the remaining 4 anywhere?
I have letters within the project file that are the setback reduction letters that were signed, but the reason those have not been included in any packets is because we did not get all property owners to sign. Okay. I do have those within the file here. If you're interested, I can certainly work with our staff here, but we would need to take a break so I can get those copied.
That's less important to me than just verifying that that was true, that 5 out of the 7 were in support. Has the county had any communication with the 6th neighbor who was in support but not willing to sign a letter?
We have not.
Okay, thank you.
Can I say something?
No.
Sorry, Jared Kiersley with Epic Wireless AT&T. I have my reduced setback waiver for the McGrew property. She did not sign that. However, she wrote a support letter dated June 27, 2019. I'd be happy to share.
That was McGrew.
McGrew.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did have one other question or comment. Something was addressed by one of the speakers about what he felt would be an appropriate location up on the knob of a hill. If I'm not mistaken, one of the items in the wireless guidelines is that it is not, we do not want them on the top of the hills because of the skyline visual. Is that correct? Or perhaps you could address that a little more eloquently than I can.
Sure. Just from a planning perspective, typically you don't want to have any development really that's at the top of a ridge because it really creates a silhouette against the sky. And what it really is, it's about visual impacts. So with this, if it were to be located at the top of a ridge, it would likely be required that they'd need to do additional visual mitigations in order to either subdue it into the background, but not having a proposal, not being familiar with the property that was mentioned, I really can't speak to whether or not it would be appropriate to locate it on top of that ridge.
You'd probably
Thank
have to light it too.
It could be too.
Ridge top.
Well, I believe, anyway, I think you responded to that. I don't think I had any other questions, any of the other, yes, Molly?
Yeah, I'd like to mention the terrible conflict and the sad part of the conflict that is really brought forward here, which is the need for cell coverage, the advantages of it, and then the extreme desire of people who move to the country to not be near them. And we're not going to resolve that. That conflict is going to stay throughout our nation. And you have my sympathy as a property owner that doesn't want to live near a cell tower. I'm about a mile away. I can't see them, but I just today am changed from our last meeting because of the support. I thought at our last meeting that these 150 or so homes really didn't care or in fact didn't want to look at a cell tower. But I think my mind's been changed today, and I'm, unfortunately, for those who don't want a cell tower, probably going to support it.
And I would like to say, as I mentioned at the last meeting, I have been out to the site. I did meet with Hal Pauley. From what I could see, the site, it is very well hidden, except, as Hal mentioned, from the top. So just to acknowledge, I have met with the applicant. I did visit the site. Any other comments or questions from this?
The only comment I have is about people living so close to these cell towers and around the height mitigation. And so is there any due process that the county or the company putting up these cell towers, right, find some kind of compensation to these owners who, we heard one family didn't, sold their property. So not to say I'm just curious, has there been any compensation from AT&T or other when people are needing to get, are within these required setbacks?
I can say, at least from staff's perspective, there's nothing within our county system that would have that.
Thank you.
That's right. I was going to jump on that. Yeah. So that's obviously outside of the purview of the.
State your name again.
Nick Taggis, Epic Wireless, on behalf of AT&T. With all due respect, this isn't a purview of the jurisdiction. However, we want to make it known that contractual law is we enter into a freely decided upon transaction between two private properties. If a third private property, for instance, is required to go over their access road, that third party would then be brought into a private transaction. But this is all about free private transactions in the marketplace here. That's how every cellular company works. Every aspect. If I'm going to rent a room from her house, I'm not going to go to her next door neighbor and say, due to the inconvenience, I'd like to also pay you. That's just the reality of market economics.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to echo Commissioner Warner's comments too, where this is one of those cases where it's clear that we're trying to really balance the risk and the impact to some properties and the benefit to others. And I think really the question before us is not, does cell communication and broadband internet benefit our community? I think we realize that the answer is clearly yes. I think the question before us today is this tower well sited in this location? And to answer that, I really lean on these guidelines that we have here, which are well thought out. And I wish that all of the neighbors in the affected area felt comfortable with what was happening, but I know that not all do.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to live next to a cell tower either. So that's hard. That's just hard. And I want to acknowledge that publicly. And what I do love is that this thing is going to be hidden in the trees, right, as well as any tower possibly could. The part about this siting that I don't love is that it's in a neighborhood that has, 1 acre parcels, 1.5 acre parcels. This is not timberland where we've got hundreds of acres around. So again, I lean on the guidelines, and it does appear that even without the 100% support of all the neighbors, that it does meet the guidelines because of 3 and 4, M3 and M4.
Any other comments from the commissioners? And I think I'm looking for a motion. Do we have a motion?
I never get to make motions, but I'll make this one. So I make the recommended motion that we approve this tower, subject to the findings therein in the packet and the conditions, the mitigated negative declaration, the mitigated monitoring and reporting program, and grant use permit U 2017-0038.
Yes, Julia.
If I may, there's just 2 corrections that need to be made to the resolution. So I would just, either if you'd like me to do a red line of that and put it up on the screen, which I would just ask for maybe a 2-minute break while I just do those quick
Maybe we could do
changes.
minutes,
It's just really speaking to the expiration date that needs to be updated, as well as the dates on the resolution.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, just 2 minutes
Yeah.
to allow me to
That'd
do
be
that.
great. Oh, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
I'll second.
And thank you. We could go ahead maybe with approval of minutes. Well, 2 minutes.
Very quick, promise.
Okay.
Oh, right, because of all the continuance. And we didn't change any of the conditions other than the dates, right?
I am done with my changes.
Okay, so those were just primarily changes of date, right?
It's really dates. So here's the first one. Here's just at the top, noting that today's meeting is July 3rd. Noting in the third whereas clause that there were meetings held on May 16th and the meeting today on July 3rd. And then I'm going to scroll all the way through to the very last page of the resolution. And here was the expiration date, and typically we set it for 10 years off of when the final action is taken on it. So I just wanted to update that to July 3rd to give the applicant the full 10 years.
Thank you. That was quick. Thank you very much. It was less than 2 minutes. Okay, I think we have a motion and a second, so I think we should have a roll call vote.
Madam Chair, if I
Oh,
may.
thank you.
I would just ask that, Christian Curtis, Assistant County Counsel, since the changes occurred after the motion was made, just to clarify whether the motion incorporates these changes.
Yes.
And the second agrees.
Thank you.
Commissioner Purnell?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiedemann?
No.
Commissioner Warner?
Yes.
Commissioner Holtkamp?
Yes.
Chair Ogle?
Yes. So the item has passed. Thank you all for your input and for speaking today. We really appreciate hearing from all of you. That's what this is all about, public hearing and having people come and having us listen and try to weigh,
Try to turn black and white into one thing.
Yes. So thank you all very much.
Our meeting is still in session, and we'd like to continue it, please. Thank you.
Moving right along.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Let's see.
I would
guess-
like to move approval of the December 6th minutes.
Yeah, actually, we have to go through matters and staff.
So I just have one item that I want to update you all on. So on May 16th, this body approved use permit 2017-0034, which is located in the coastal zone. It was located in the Albion area on Navarro Ridge Road. And I would just like to let you know that that permit was appealed to the California Coastal Commission on June 20th. And so that permit is now being reviewed by the commission staff. They'll have their first hearing on this during their August meeting, which happens up in the Eureka area. That's where they're holding it this time around. So just to let you know that that was appealed, and it was appealed by the public, not by the commission themselves. And so I just wanted to give you that update, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about that appeal and how that process works.
Which permit was that?
That was the use permit 2017-34. It was the one located on top of Navarro Ridge on the Lord's Land Ministries property.
Okay, the cell tower.
Yes, the cell tower. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Thank you.
In my head, I said that already.
You might have.
Okay.
Is it because that was in the coastal zone?
That was in the coastal zone. It's one of the very last parcels in the coastal zone. It actually has the coastal zone boundary bisects the parcel.
Right.
So that was appealed by a member of the public with several concerns. The commission process really works as there's the initial hearing, which is where they determine whether or not they themselves find substantial issue with the project. That'll be the first hearing in August. If they don't find substantial issue, then the original approval from this body will stand. If they do find substantial issue, then they move on to what's called a de novo hearing, where they then go and review and see if they wish to make any changes. I've talked with the applicant and agent for this project about how that works, as well as if the commission makes any changes that would be different than the approval that was reached by this body, that those changes may require coming back with a modification in front of this body to the original permit. So.
And given that extended timeline, does that jeopardize the project because of the grant funds?
I am not certain off the top of my head. I will say that the building permit has been submitted for it, and our building division is still reviewing that building permit, with the request of the applicant to keep it moving forward through the process. So if the appeal is decided in favor of letting the permit stand, then planning will be able to move forward with our review of that permit. As of now, I am the reviewer on that building permit. I've placed it on hold pending resolution of the appeal.
Do you have any idea when the appeal date when it will be heard?
Oh, sure. The commission meetings are August 7th through 9th. So it's 3-day meetings that they do. And I'm not sure, they haven't published their agenda to know which day the North Coast District items would be on.
Okay, thank you.
That is the only matter I have from staff, but I am available for any questions as well.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you know what's coming up at our next meeting?
The next meeting, so right now we are confirming that we have proper notice for all the items that are presently scheduled for our August 1st meeting. Oh, excuse me, July 18th. Thank you. That is the first one. So yes, we do believe we have proper notice for all the items for July 18th. It's going to be a long meeting, so I recommend that you plan accordingly. We've got 3 ordinance amendments that'll be appearing on that agenda. So I can just tell you that the first is going to be the accessory dwelling unit ordinance within the coastal zone. The secondary item is going to be cannabis cultivation and cannabis facilities within the coastal zone. And then the third item is going to be the Board of Supervisors ad hoc recommended changes to chapters 10A17 and 20.242 of the Inland Zoning Code. And the minor sub got on there too? Okay. And there's a minor subdivision as well that's on that agenda, which will probably go first, I would imagine. So we can leave the afternoon for ordinance amendments.
Julia, was that third item, the ad hoc recommendations, are those the cannabis recommendations?
Those are, yes.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to say I'll be on vacation and miss that very lively meeting.
One other question, Julia?
Yes.
Because the first 2 ordinance amendments are on the coast, do you expect them to be completed that day, and will there be no coastal meeting?
There will not be a coastal meeting. Members of the public reached out to us. We looked into trying to be able to have this body have the meeting held in the coastal area. Given the timing of when we received that request, we didn't have adequate time between when we needed to properly notice these items to secure a room that would meet the requirements that we must have for holding any public meeting. So unfortunately, it is going to all be here in Ukiah. We were not able to make it work for the coastal area. And the process will be from the Planning Commission here, you're going to be making a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on these ordinance amendments for items in the coastal zone. The Board of Supervisors will be, if they are in agreement with the ordinances, would be adopting a resolution that would authorize the Planning Division to submit the local coastal program amendment application to the Coastal Commission for certification. Typically, the Board of Supervisors will wait to formally adopt the ordinance until after the Coastal Commission has certified the amendment, but that decision really lies with the Board of Supervisors.
Is there any chance the board, when they hear it after us, would meet on the coast?
I am not certain. That's a great question, and unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that.
Diane? Yeah.
My question is, because it is such a coastal issue, and I get that the 18th is agendized here, would it get carried to our next meeting that might be, or to a special meeting on the coast? Is that a possibility?
I will look to our commission staff because our next meeting in August, I believe we are already noticing items for that meeting. So there would be no way to hold the August 1st meeting on the coast. We've already noticed items for this location here. As to holding a special meeting, that lies with this body really here, and there are procedures in your bylaws that speak to it.
Madam Chair, if I may, Christian Curtis, Assistant County Counsel, I'd just also suggest, since continuance is possibly an action that you would be taking at the time of that meeting, and I would just suggest holding off on any discussion of any possibility on that front, since we're not actually noticed for the item. We're only noticed for the meeting at this location on the 18th at this point.
Are you saying we can't discuss what we're discussing?
I would just suggest
did I hear that right?
I would suggest not going any further in terms of any action you might take on the 18th.
Any other question? As lengthy as this meeting might be, and I know that, we are allowed one meal, is the county picking up dinner too?
Oh, that's very good. That's right.
Excellent question. We'll ask the director. Exactly correct.
Okay, matters.
How long do you think both of those items, just the ADU and the cannabis, will be? I mean, just in, like, what are we actually doing with the cannabis?
You will be reviewing draft ordinances that have been prepared by staff. And we will do likely a very brief presentation from staff and leave lots of room for public comment and questions from this body related to how that ordinance is laid out. That's for both items, really. So it's hard for me to guess. I know there's a lot of interest in the ADU aspect from members of the public, as well as realtors and really people that are stakeholders with regards to ADUs and real estate in the area. So it's hard for me to say how long it will be, but we really tried to keep the agenda of other items, like the minor sub got on there, but we've got other items that we've tried to keep off of there just to leave only the ordinance amendments.
And do we happen to know, Adrian or Jim, how the attendance will be? We know Allison will not be there. It's probably a little bit early, but do you know if everyone else is expected to be there? Okay, thank you.
And I did have a question on the ADUs, because I read an article that there's 2 pre-approved plans through the county. Yes, that's great. Can we get more information on that and possibly even blueprints?
Yes, the plans are actually posted on the department webpage on our very front page. They are samples because, of course, the engineered plans are not given out freely off of the internet without someone signing an indemnification agreement for the person that prepared those plans. But they are available, and people are welcome to come in and learn what the process is to obtain a copy of those plans and be able to build accessory dwelling units.
Right. Could you send a link to the
to the plans? Of course.
That would be awesome.
Yes.
In the general plan area?
And the
No, the ADU being approved for the general plan area.
Oh, I'm talking about the actual plans, because there's 2 pre-approved plans for units, like 2 choices for units themselves.
Oh, the plans itself. the
Yeah,
actual-
and so I
yes,
know that's
see.
more
Right.
of the building side, but it's still part of the same conversation.
It's still pertinent,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Right.
yes, we'll make sure we send you guys a link to where those sample plans are located. And yeah, there was a press release that went out and said that these plans are now available.
Lovely, thank you.
Anything else from the commission? Anything? No. We have 2 minutes for approval, December 6th.
I move approval.
Second? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then I had numerous corrections on the May 16th, and I apologize. I just read this last night, so I didn't get them to staff in time. Do you want me to start out with? Okay. On page 3, they're actually all the same one. I believe Mr. LaRue's name is not in, I think it's, I don't think there's a capital there. I think it's L-A-R-U-E without a capital. Maybe someone else knows, or?
I don't.
Okay. And then, see on page 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on the 6th paragraph beginning with Mr. LaRue. And it says study more appropriately. I think that should be than just a senior housing project, not that. And on page 5, wow, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That would be paragraph 11 begins, Ms. Ackerman stated it was an existing encroachment on to Navarro Ridge Road, but would be, I believe it's upgraded with a D to commercial for the project. I think you're getting all these right. Okay, and on page 6.
I love this one.
Sorry?
I loved this
Yeah, me too. Well, starting with the 3rd paragraph.
This is my favorite.
That begins with Mr. Kearsley. Going down the 2nd line, property owner built 2 fire codes and know the generator would be asked for sight and sound. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be.
I talk to my machines all the time, but I don't
Masked?
think it was
Maybe
meant
masked?
that you had asked the generator.
Would be masked for sight and sound? Is that what it's supposed to be?
That makes sense.
That seems accurate to staff.
Okay. And then the next paragraph, Commissioner Purnell, it begins with, and then it goes, ask what that would mean for the area. Great data or more. Is that supposed to be greater data or more?
You know, I read this too, and my memory's not that great. I don't know what this is trying to say.
Probably great. I vaguely remember that wanting to know about how much data was in the area. But
Maybe it was, because I think I was trying to get to the point about, is this about cell service or is this about data?
Yeah.
And so,
greater
greater
would
cell
work.
service or more data options or something. Yeah, something like that would work.
yeah, that sounds good.
And then the next one, beginning with Mr. Kearsley, optic facility, however, and was relayed signals. But, I had but. Mr. Kearsley said it would be more than data. Okay, there you go. There's the answer to the one above it. And would supply internet. He stated it was not a fiber optic facility, however, but was relayed signals. I'm not sure. But was, so change the and to but, I'm thinking. Okay, and then on down to where Nick Tagus spoke. I don't know which, anyway, the first Nick Tagus, Epic Wireless Long-Range Planner discussed future advancements in technology and elaborated, with a D on the end, on how co-location worked with multiple carriers. It's page 6. And
That guy, he explains things so I can understand it.
Yeah,
Nick does,
he
yeah.
does a good job.
He does a
Yeah.
great job. Then on page 8, looks like paragraph 9, beginning with Commissioner Purnell, asked when AT&T had switched from monopines to lattice towers and requested clarification of the exception process. I believe that's supposed to be. And then on page 9.
Oops, may I just
Oh, sorry.
interject? On
Sure,
page
you have
8,
another one?
Yeah, just two
I missed something?
paragraphs down on page 8. Jared Kersley, agent, discuss the height of the proposed tower. You need to add the word tower.
Oh. That was the second to the last one? No, I'm sorry, where was that?
2/3 of the way down.
Oh, okay.
Jared Kersley, agent, discuss the height of the proposed
Tower.
tower.
Okay, thank you. If anyone else has anything else I missed, please jump on as we do the pages. And on
You're
page,
not allowed to miss anything.
and on page 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Paragraph 9. Beginning, Director Schultz commented that the county and something adopted the goal of infrastructure. I think we're missing a word there.
That would be Board of Supervisors.
So is it the county board of supervisors adopted or the county and something else?
It would be the County Board of Supervisors.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
get rid of the and.
Oh, I just saw
Thank you.
another.
We believe it should read that the County Board of Supervisors had adopted.
Oh, okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
Had.
And then I just picked up one at the bottom, the last paragraph. Mr. Tigas noted they were given a consensus track and search area to find a location. And this, I think that should be parcel was the best match. Missed that one. Not a parcel.
All right.
And then on page 10, second to the last, or no, third to the last paragraph, Matt Kradowski, County Council. And the last sentence, he also noted that if too much time passed, AT&T may simply abandon the site. I think the should be in there. That's all I had. Anyone else?
Yes, I have one more.
Oh, good.
Kind of important.
Yes.
At the end of page 10, we don't have the motion. Upon motion by Commissioner Holtcamp, seconded by Commissioner Purnell, and carried by the following roll call, it is ordered.
Oh,
and we
that's
don't have the
really
order.
important.
Oh, it got cut off, huh?
Yeah. So we definitely need that.
I voted on that, too.
Good catch.
Yeah, that's a really good catch. Do we need to fill that in before we approve the minutes?
I would suggest that you do.
Okay.
So we'll continue this set of minutes till the next meeting so they can go back to the tape.
No, it doesn't.
No,
It
it
has the
doesn't.
votes, but not the motion.
It has the votes, but we didn't get the motion. It just didn't get copied right.
So I think you would be moving this then to the next agenda for
Okay, thank you.
approval then, and we'll revise the minutes.
Okay, so you'll make all those corrections and we'll have it at our next meeting? Sounds great. Anything else for the good of the public other than a vote to
Approval.
adjourn? Approval?
Adjourn.
Adjourn, okay. Second?
I second it.
Thank you. Oh, we got through it. Whew.
Whoa, you did a great job.
Really,
Good
considering
sharing.
how many
Good
people there were.
sharing, you did.
Thank
You
you.